cold and gray and we were flying 15 floors above the block. And life was told.
All right, and welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Lindsay Schooler.
Hi.
From Happy Goat Yoga.
Yeah.
And we became friends recently on Facebook, and I immediately asked you to come on the podcast, and you said yes.
You did, and I did.
Yeah, and we were actually kind of talking about how I think the first time I met you was at the Black Sheep Winery. You were taking a class with Nicole.
Yeah.
And I took yoga with her for about a year and a half through my friend Melanie. She talked me into going, and I loved it, going once a week. And I've actually been to a couple classes down here.
Yeah.
And I have heard so many good things about this place other than like my own experience here. Just everybody loves it.
Thanks. It's been really overwhelming. Really, really overwhelming and surprising how many people are showing up at the door.
Yeah, I know that it's like the hot thing. It's still, and it's how long have you been open?
3 years.
3 years, and it's still like a hot business.
We still have brand new people at almost every single class. Yeah.
Well, I know that I really loved your style.
Yeah.
When you did, very relaxing, and you obviously know what you're doing, and you just had a nice warmth about you that I'm sure that has a lot to do with people coming back over and over again.
Yeah, that's what people say. That's what everybody says. I think we all are a little bit self-critical, and so I tend to think that it's something much bigger than me that keeps bringing people back. But I do. I've always just wanted to be happy, and so I think that kind of like just translates, and so it's nice to be around people that just want to be happy. And I think that's why people keep coming back here, is because it's so rare to go someplace where everybody that's at that place is kind and calm, or trying to be kind and calm. And there's not many other places that you go, in your daily life where just everybody is like-minded and just, very kind of warm and compassionate, or again, trying to learn to be warm and compassionate. And so it's a really nice community of people, that just keeps growing. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think even if you have that respite, that one place where you can go, I think everybody wants to be kinder and gentler and calmer, and sometimes they struggle with it. So if you have a place, plus yoga is great for that anyhow, but you obviously set a great tone for everybody. And like I mentioned when I walked in here, it smells great in here. And the atmosphere, that's when we were deciding where to do the podcast, I said, how about the studio? And you said yes, and I said, great, because I love it in here. It really is. It's a neat old building, if anybody's not been in here, and it's just immediately relaxing. It's very, I want to say, earthy and just kind of cozy.
Yeah, I try to make it like your living room, and it kind of was. It just happened to be that way because we didn't really have any startup money, and our business plan was just to break even. And so we were moving and remodeling this house while opening the business, which was super stressful, but also it was a great excuse to clear stuff out of the house while we were moving. So tons of the stuff from our house made its way here, and so that's what helped to kind of give it the homey kind of atmosphere, and that's made it really nice and welcoming, and so people feel comfortable. And a lot of people are so nervous to come to yoga or to come someplace new, or to try to include themselves in something that seems so unfamiliar. And it can take a lot of courage to come, and so we want people to just be able to like walk in and just take a deep breath and like, oh, it's okay, like it's not that big of a deal.
It is. I also do CrossFit, and I know a lot of people say, oh, I could never do that, but Beth, the woman that runs our gym, also, when I called her, very nervous, I needed to lose weight, I needed to get in shape, I thought the only thing I can do is, everybody keeps saying this CrossFit, so I'm just going to try it. And I was so nervous, and I called her on the phone, and we talked for like a half hour, and she immediately made me feel like it's going to be okay. This is a nice person, and very welcoming when I went into the gym, and she's always been like that. And it is. It's a more vigorous atmosphere, but it's still that warm community of people that help each other, and you feel really loved when you walk in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because you're right. People, they struggle to do new things nowadays. I think
Yeah.
it's very convenient to stay home and watch Netflix, and we get unfamiliar with communication because so much of it is online.
Yeah.
And so to go out in the real world is a little bit harder for a lot of people. They have social anxiety, so coming into a place where you feel welcome and comfortable, and
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people, even when I mentioned I was coming here, they said, yoga, oh, I could never do that. I couldn't bend that far. And so, well, that's why you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
And nobody judges you for not bending that far.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody has come here and started out because they couldn't touch their toes, or they couldn't sit still,
Yeah.
or they couldn't slow down, or most of us have come to the practice because we have some horrible injuries,
Right.
Or chronic illness, and stress, or headaches, or something that just wasn't being managed otherwise. And so everybody just does what they can. Even if you come in and do 2 of the poses and you just lay there the rest of the time, it's totally fine. And nobody's worried about what anybody else is doing because everybody's on their mat dealing with their own stuff.
Right.
So
That's one thing
nobody even notices really anybody else. Yeah.
That's right. That's what I noticed when I did yoga before with Nicole, and same with CrossFit. You're so focused on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't have time to pay attention to anybody else.
Right.
And anybody that is like paying attention to you, they're probably not working that hard anyhow. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, they're just wandering around.
Yeah.
What you said about kind of the sense of community, I think people have really lost that
They
sense
have,
of community.
absolutely.
We've lost our sense of culture and just that deep connection to one another. And I'm a very private person. I like to spend a lot of time by myself. I sit at home and watch Netflix, and it's lovely. But we're social creatures. Like, even those of us that are introverted or do like to be alone, and aren't comfortable in big crowds of people, we're still social creatures. And so it's just nice to kind of find your tribe, I guess.
It is that group that you can relate to. I think less and less people are going to church where they have that community, and things like CrossFit and yoga classes where you have that sense of community, where you're doing an activity together. And yoga's not always easy.
Right.
And so I think
mentally or physically.
So you have that shared struggle with people.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a bonding experience, and if you go to regular classes, you start to become a regular and make friends, and it is an important part of life to be part of a community. And I think for some people, it might be the only interactions that they get a lot of times.
Yeah.
People that see me out in public, they probably think because I'm kind of an extrovert when I'm around people. But I also I live alone, and I spend a lot of time by myself, and I really love motorcycles, but you do that by yourself.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time by myself, and I enjoy it. But then I like to have, the podcast is great because I interact with people, but I also like getting together with a big group. And it's funny, I noticed throughout my life, I'm always trying to build groups of people and trying to like give it a name and formalize it and make it feel like a family. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think for people to feel like they're part of any kind of a group is natural as us being social people. We're very tribal, so
it's like in our biology. It's like in our DNA to like have your people, whether it's your family or your extended family or friends or whatever. Like you said, kind of tribally going back and thinking about that is interesting.
And we live in an area that's kind of post-industrial, and so things like yoga and arts and they're not as widely accepted as maybe they are other places. So I think for people that already feel that way, it's great to have a place where you can meet like-minded people. And I think there are a lot of other people that are curious.
Yeah.
And they're starting to lean towards maybe seeing the benefits of some more bohemian activities.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great that they have a place where they can kind of test the waters and get out of the rat race of life. And that's we're very conditioned to be part of that. And I think coming here is, part of breaking free of that and having that other side of you.
Yeah, everybody is looking for something else, looking for a way to be happy or to take their take their health to another level where you're not just making a New Year's resolution to go to the gym, but you're looking to really like seriously improve your quality
Absolutely.
of life. And look a little bit deeper into your mental well-being, because it's not just that the mind and body are connected, but just that it's all one thing. Yeah, so it's nice. Yoga's nice because it kind of targets can improve your quality of life from a physical standpoint, a mental, emotional, kind of spiritual or energetic, and all of those things kind of wrapped up into one, I think makes it so appealing, especially when people are so busy, and even if you make your happiness or wellness a priority, you still have very little time
Right.
somehow to devote to it. So if you can find something that kind of wraps it all up into one, I think that's why yoga has become so popular, especially in the West, because even if you're going to a class that they don't talk much about the philosophy or the meditation or pranayama and breathing techniques, like in a really deep way, if you're just doing the physical practice, you're still kind of opening up those lines of communication between you and your body, and kind of letting things flow through you in a different way. And so, yeah, it's interesting. And we are for sure social creatures. And for a lot of people, yeah, it is the only time that they get out. And we have a lot of people that have really severe social anxiety that come to yoga, because you can come, you don't have to talk to anybody, it's fine. Like, you can come and just be totally quiet the whole time, and it's perfectly normal and acceptable to just kind of be really involved in what you're doing, and to kind of be a bit closed off. But a lot of people will come and get so excited to see people they haven't seen in a long time, or be surprised, like, you come to yoga, I come to yoga. And so that's really nice too, especially as we're blessed with so many teachers and so many classes on the schedule. So a lot of people could be coming and have no idea that their friends or family or whatever are coming as well, and that's really fun to see when people come together in that way. I started out teaching senior fitness and chair yoga, and so for sure that was social hour. I started teaching aquasize for seniors through the Silver Sneakers program, which is this great fitness program for seniors where their health insurance pays for gym memberships.
My father's
awesome.
part of that.
Silver Sneakers, yeah. So I started out teaching Silver Splash, the aquasize classes, and then transitioned into chair yoga. But for sure, you barely could hold their attention because they're just socializing the whole time. Because especially for older folks, it just seemed for sure that was one of the only times that they were really getting to get out and get into a group of people. They might have, one-on-one visitors or caretaker or whatever. But yeah, I've never thought about that before, about not just socializing, but how important it is to find a group.
Yeah.
I like what you said.
Yeah.
I like that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Making groups of friends.
Groups,
Making groups. Yeah.
I think, like you said, you can come to a yoga class, and if you're shy, you can sit there and not say anything and still feel part of the community without necessarily verbally participating, because you're doing the same activity with everybody. So on many levels, you are joining in and collaborating and working with everybody without having to say words. There's something nice about getting together with people to do an activity versus just hanging out.
Yeah.
I do films, and so you can spend a Saturday morning with your friends, like having breakfast and talking, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But there's a different level of fun when you're working on a project together.
Yeah.
And even like what I'm doing now with my little handyman business, when me and somebody else are working on a project together, and it's not easy, but there's a certain bonding that you're spending like this really fun time together, working on something difficult, and some of the poses in yoga are not easy, and so there's that, I think, that sense of satisfaction that you were able to hold it, and there's always lots of goals, right? That you can always go a little deeper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. That's what's so great about it, is like it's totally accessible to everyone, and it's a never-ending practice. So, the poses, the asanas, are just one of the 8 limbs of yoga, and we don't talk about that a lot, especially
I'm glad you brought that up.
in the West. Yeah. But meditation and pranayama and breathing techniques, and then yamas and niyamas are these kind of guidelines for living, and non-harming and having compassion. And there's actually this whole list of things that you're supposed to be mastering before you even attempt the postures.
Right.
And compassion is a huge one. We've been talking about that a lot this week in classes because of this, whether you believe in the energy of it or not, we're affected by the moon and the stars and everything. And so this crazy, super full, super blue blood moon. And people have been feeling so tired and overwhelmed, or even a bit sad or depressed. And just this past week, or even the past couple weeks, and even still now, the residual effects of it. And it's interesting. I try not to assume those things about people, but when they come into class, I'll mention, this is going on, and maybe you've been feeling this way, and a lot of folks aren't super keen on sharing.
Sure.
But then I'll open it up and say, or maybe you've been feeling really great and you've had a lot of energy, but that has not been the consensus.
Right.
So it's nice to see this person is having a bit of a hard time too. Maybe it's not just me. And tons of people have been coming in, especially the past couple weeks, and saying that they're like, I took a nap yesterday, and I never take a nap. I always have so much energy.
Yeah.
Like CrossFitters or people that have a lot of energy and are usually going and love to be that way. I've just been really tired, and so it's just nice to kind of have a group of people where you're kind of a little bit more aware of, the environment or these other kind of elements that might be at play in the way that you feel. And just the season, we're in the dead of winter. And so we've really been talking so much about compassion, to just be, to forgive yourself, to give yourself a break. It's fine to just stay home. It's fine to sleep in if you're able to. It's fine to just have compassion for yourself.
I think, and if you, like you said, maybe it's discussed in terms of yoga, it's okay to stay home or maybe in other things, but once you learn to have compassion for yourself with the small things, it's big, to be able to let yourself off the hook. My friend Kathy she's just starting to teach yoga, and I took her class a couple weeks ago at the gym, and I was having a really bad couple weeks, and I remember just at the class, just focusing on everything. I walked out of there feeling so much better. Not expected. I'm just I've been really stiff lately. I'm just going to go, and I really love that she's doing that. So I wanted to support her, and it just ended up being this really kind of moving thing where I had to leave as soon as it's over because I was more emotional than I thought that I would be. And there is something about some of the poses you hold for quite a while, and for people like myself that I'm always moving, to just stop and not move for 2 minutes, it's big. It's a big shift it's a big shift in everything. It's a big challenge. It's a big change, and yet it's so simple, all at the same time. And the idea of yoga and meditation seems so difficult. It seems so monumental sometimes, to meditate, and it's really just sitting and staring for 2 minutes. You meditated. It's fine, But we've gotten to want to have that distraction all the time. And so, when people often get emotional in yoga or after yoga, especially in the meditation or sound bath classes, all sorts of stuff comes up for so many reasons. Like you said, when you're actually, even if you're holding a posture that's challenging, or even if you're in something that's a bit easy, if you're being still in it for a couple minutes, without many distractions, even if there is a bit of music or the teacher kind of cueing, you're just really left alone with your thoughts. And so
all of that stuff kind of starts to come up, and it's a great place to figure things out, and to clear your head just enough to kind of make sense of things, or to realize what matters and what doesn't, and that can be really, really lovely as well. Yeah, and you're we think about it's not just, I love that there's so much science behind it now.
Right.
That it's not just like this like hippy dippy kind of loosey goosey stuff so much anymore, that there's like a lot of real solid, amazing research behind what's happening in yoga and meditation, physiologically and neurologically. What's happening to your brain in meditation is awesome. It's so motivating to get into the practice, or just to take deep breaths throughout the day, or to start to try to incorporate that into your daily life, that bit of mindfulness. But yeah, we have energy flowing through us all the time, and we're energetic beings, and yeah, we have these like physical bodies, these like meat suits we're like carrying around that we're like bound by, but we have energy, and so if your heart stops, like, we give you an electric shock, like to restart it or to get it back into rhythm. And so we have this energy, and again, like, not just in a hippy dippy way, but we're totally aware. People are aware of that. You're aware if you go to a place and everybody's like negative and angry.
You can feel it. Absolutely.
You feel like you're affected by it. Or if you go to some place and everybody's calm, and on the other side of things, you notice how that affects you or how it makes you feel, depending on the energy of the people around you. And there's all of these transfers of energy, and you have this energy in yourself, and so things can get bound up, and we are just always like, we have these little traumas that happen to us all day,
absolutely.
Let alone like great big serious things that happen to us that most of us have the gall not to be in therapy, and so we're not working it out, we're not setting it free, we're not getting it out, we're not processing it. We bury it, we shove it down, we swallow it, we just grit and push through because we can, because we
there's enough distractions.
Because we totally can. We're incredibly resilient and strong. And we totally can, on the surface at least, get away with that. But then it like turns into a brain tumor or some other horrible kind of stress related thing. And so when you start to move your body in these different ways and these like ancient postures, it changes the way energy flows through your body, and you're kind of unlocking things that might have been blocked or bound up. And so a lot of people have to. You sometimes can be helpful to know to be really cautious if you are a trauma survivor, if you have something like PTSD, something really, really serious going on, veterans and war survivers, with all sorts of trauma and mental illness, yoga and meditation can be really helpful. You also have to be really careful and you make sure you're working with a mental health care provider, and that you're kind of have that bit of self-awareness before starting a yoga and meditation practice if you've had some serious trauma, because you do have the potential for kind of unlocking stored energy, which could also have with it memories or visions. And so it's important for people to know that, but also just to know that, we have all experienced loss and sadness, and all of these things can come up and can come out in a yoga practice. Yeah.
And something, actually, I was telling you that I did the podcast with Melody, and afterwards we had a pretty good discussion as well. And we're talking about some of the minor things, but how sometimes they're worse than the big traumatic things. And we were even talking about acquaintance fatigue, where you have people in your life that you really not sure how you feel about them. They're kind of your friends, they're kind of not. And as much as it's good to have a lot of like good supportive people in your life, there's also that thing where you kind of end up having social obligations and the pressures of these where you kind of, wow, I don't really know how I feel about these people, but I guess I'll do it. And that can even be taxing on you in a way that we all know, like having toxic people in your life can be harmful, but sometimes having just kind of not positive, not negative, just that can drain you. And so I think even having a mundane life or just micro little traumas that you really don't think about at the time, but some little things that hurt your feelings that you can't really ever put your finger on, but those the cumulative effect of those sometimes can be worse than a major trauma, because at least a major trauma you kind of have to deal with it, or you can identify it. Those little things, they just kind of are hidden away and hard to put your finger on. And
yeah, that's interesting. We talk about that a lot, like the daily thing, all the little daily things. That's interesting. That's interesting what you said about feeling obligated to spend time with people that they're okay, but they're not like a super super close friend, or not having like a super deep meaningful impact on your life, but you still you're still spending time and energy.
And that lack of connection where you kind of walk away feeling like something's missing, or that it's a lot of energy without getting that reward that you would get from the same energy from a close friend. And I think there's nothing wrong with having acquaintances and spending time, and that's how you make friends, is by first having acquaintances. But I've definitely become more aware since like the first of the year, kind of rethinking my life about the amount of energy that it takes for different things, and being really conscious of you only have so much. So if I deplete it in the wrong places, I don't have it for the people in my life that I really want to share it with, and that requires me to make some decisions. But like the nice thing about yoga and exercise is that you get a lot of extra energy that you didn't have before. So I have extra to go around if I do things like that.
Yeah, for sure. In traditional Chinese medicine, they believe that we have just a finite amount of energy, that you have your essence. And so there's this special bit of energy that you're born with, and that is like very precious, and that you're supposed to carry that with you throughout your whole life and after death. And then you have this different bit of energy that you can kind of pull from and put back into. And so you're supposed to keep this precious energy whole and just be using and filling back up this kind of top layer of energy. And but I mean, lots of us just drain it right all out, and then you start tapping into your essence and into that like precious reserve of energy that can't be replenished. And so there's a lot of interesting kind of thought and theory and history about that. But it does make sense that everything that you do is expending energy. And so even though it seems totally harmless, or like you're doing a good thing by going and spending time with people that invited you or whatnot, if it wasn't really like feeding your soul or replenishing that energy or whatnot, you're kind of just constantly depleting it a little bit. It's nice to find anything that you can do to build it back up. You know, yoga or meditation or music, or connecting to other people and podcasting, or whatever kind of fills you back up.
I think it's important, to find something that fills you back up, that makes you feel good about yourself. And I think we get so busy these days that we neglect that. And one of the things that I loved about yoga and doing CrossFit is that you really get to know your body, and you pay attention to your body. And it's a weird thing to say, because everybody's like, I know. But you're so much more aware of your body when you do these things, that you take that with you throughout the day. And I know it might sound crazy, but I feel like, I get cut and banged up all the time, and I heal up really quickly, but I also focus a lot on I'm aware of certain things, especially not so much cuts, but like pulls and tears, and I'm acutely aware of what's going on in my body all the time, and knowing when to protect certain things if I feel an injury coming on. And then that, I think, for a lot of people, eating is a problem. Yeah. Eating unhealthy food. And when you get more aware of your body, you start to eat more healthy.
Yeah, without even really trying or thinking about it. Just when you start doing anything that's good for you, that you're being kind to yourself, even if it's working out really hard. Yeah. That's still, as long as you're doing it in like a healthy, safe way, with someone who's trained or whatnot, you're still, replenishing and giving yourself that energy, and it's interesting.
Yeah, and that anytime you do a little bit of self-improvement, it does make you feel, in general, better about your life as a whole. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times we feel like our lives are out of control, and so once you start anything that's on the pathway to improvement, it feels like you have a little bit of control. Of course, like I always like the saying, "Relax, nothing's in control." Yeah, that's one of my favorite sayings. Yeah. But to a certain extent, the fact that you are at least working towards a goal, a positive goal, and we need that. I think something to make us feel better, and to not let all of the daily life stuff weigh you down. And yeah. So the name Happy Goat, I know that there's a story behind that, right?
Yeah, of course. So I went to yoga teacher training down in Charleston, West Virginia. I chose that studio. It was the Folded Leaf in Charleston, and their yoga school is the Om Seva School of Yoga. Om is like the universal sound of creation, and Seva means service. And so community service was a huge part of it, and service to ourselves and to others. And so I traveled down to Charleston for yoga teacher training. It was a year, so 200-hour teacher training. It was every weekend, or 1 weekend a month for a year. So I was commuting down there every month. And just before getting into Charleston, there was a hillside, like a cliffside, and I would always see these goats just randomly on the hillside. There weren't really, I'm sure they were someone's goats, but there weren't any houses around. It was like this kind of sheer cliff, and so I'd always see them, and it just kind of stuck in my head that I would call, if I had a business or whatever, just this whole goat yoga thing kind of stuck in my head. And that was in like 2008, 2009. Before goat yoga was like all the rage. Yeah. So now I get tagged in all those videos quite a bit, and people call from time to time and want to do goat yoga, where we're not actually doing yoga with goats. I think there's a lot to be said for animal therapy, but I don't particularly want to practice deep breathing in a barn. Yeah. We have carpet here. Otherwise, I would totally have the animal shelter bring bunnies or kittens or whatever. But yeah, I called my teaching goat yoga when I first finished teacher training. I started contracting myself out to a few different places, so I had to get a business license, had to come up with a name. So it was just goat yoga for a while. But I was sending invoices with goat yoga, which was fine, except that people really didn't know what yoga was to begin with. And then when you called it goat yoga, it was extra confusing. So then we just added the happy. Maybe a couple years after teacher training, I added it to the business cards and my business license, just to make it more whimsical and inviting. And you can't really show up with an ego to a place called Happy Goat. I mean, you can, but you're gonna kind of drop it at the door, I think. And just to make it a little bit more inviting, so people you don't have to take the practice it's all very serious and deep, and it can really change your life, but you don't have to take it that serious. You don't have to take yourself that serious. So I think everybody could stand to take themselves a lot less seriously, probably. Happy Goat Yoga is where that came from. And I chose that studio because at the time it was West Virginia's only registered yoga school. And now there are several, and so things are really growing. That kind of held I grew up in West Virginia, from West Virginia. I live in the country in Ohio now, but I still have my foot on the right side of the river over here. So Happy Goat is where where it came from, but you won't find goats. I'm very sorry.
I think you could still have a lovely experience without the goats.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So, what year again? 2015, 14?
So we opened in November of 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the decision to open a studio? Was it just?
Well, there wasn't one, and I just kept hoping and praying that somebody would open this amazing yoga studio that I could just show up to teach at. Right. Because I think I'm a hippie. I have a degree in English literature and creative writing, not in business.
Right.
And I just wanted to teach yoga and be happy and help other people feel happy, and so opening a business is a whole another kind of can of worms. But what happened was, after teacher training, I was teaching at a bunch of different places and gyms, and like we talked about earlier, the environment is so important, and eventually, you should be able to be mindful and present and kind of clear-headed at the grocery store, or in a heated debate, or when you're driving, or anywhere. You should be able to really do that eventually, but especially when you're first starting out, you just need a quiet, warm space. And so it was hard to get people to love yoga at a gym or any place where it was cold or noisy, especially if they were trying it for the first time. It's a much different story trying to meditate in like this perfect serene environment versus like sitting in the middle of traffic or whatnot. So I was teaching all these different places, and it was going okay, and then there was a place in Elm Grove called Powerhouse Yoga, and this super sweet lady, Lisa Fall, had opened it. They had a beautiful yoga room, but she was nervous that the Valley wouldn't sustain just a yoga studio. Do you remember that space?
No, I don't remember that. Huh.
It was in the Elm Terrace Shopping Plaza, and we had the beautiful yoga room. We had hot yoga and gentle yoga and everything there. And she got a bit nervous after the first year and had actually sold it to someone else who just was having a lot of hard times and dealing with a lot of kind of family and mental health issues themselves. And so it really fell apart and ended up closing. And by then I was teaching yoga, doing prenatal yoga for the girls from the Florence Crittenton home.
Nice.
So that was like in 2011, I think, that Powerhouse closed, and so I started going to Crittenton before they were bringing the girls here. And so just if anybody doesn't know, the Florence Crittenton home was founded a really long time ago by this lady, Florence Crittenton, and it originally was for girls who had gotten pregnant in high school or younger, and needed a place to be able to go and live and be safe and keep going to school throughout their pregnancy. And now it's just for state-removed girls, and they have just a really great mission, a really great program, and they house a ton of girls, whether they have kids or don't, or are pregnant or not. But so I was going on site there, and it was super stressful. It's a stressful environment. They're living there.
My sister-in-law used to work there. It's
they're
a different
kind
place.
of continuously tend to be understaffed and overworked, because it is such a difficult place. Such a difficult place to work, but it's so rewarding if you can find a way to balance the self-care and doing that type of work. But so I was going there to teach, and it was going pretty good, but it was still just really difficult for them to relax or to kind of get into a different state of mind, because they were still in the same building. And just for me personally, it was really challenging to go there too. At every class, when I would leave, I would just go and sit in my car in the parking lot and just like not have the radio. Even the whole drive home, I couldn't turn the radio on. It was just really overwhelming. And so I really wanted to have a place where they could come to. Yeah. So everyone who has ever come to Happy Goat Yoga, or ever wants to, or is just happy that we're here because somebody they know came here and got happier or healthier, has the Florence Crittenton home really to thank, because I just really started looking for a space that I could bring the girls to and to have some public classes. And so we kicked around the idea, we looked at a bunch of spaces, and everything was just so expensive, and like the business of helping people like isn't always super lucrative, and
right, yeah.
And so we were really nervous to spend a lot of money on rent or whatnot. So I actually had called. I'd seen a space up the road that was for rent here in historic North Wheeling. But by the time I had called, they had rented it, but they offered us to look at this space. And so I came in, and it was the perfect layout to have the lobby separate, a separate entrance, and the yoga room is totally separate. Like, it's really, really ideal, and just the beautiful historic building. And we had to do a lot of work before we came in, or a little bit of work, to get it up to code and everything. But it just really worked out. We were able to rent the space, and was able to get Crittenton to start bringing the girls here to us, so they still come twice a week.
Nice.
And yeah, so they're able to get out, and now everybody else is able to get out. We had just a small group of people that were coming to classes at Powerhouse or other places, so I had like a small email list, and I was hoping just that those people would sustain us.
Right.
But I just really had no idea that like thousands of other people were going to show up. It's crazy and amazing.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
It is funny because you could have this big business plan and set forth in motion this thing that this is going to take off like wildfire, and it never really does. And then you can just, this is kind of what I want to do, and it's okay. And I think, especially for something like yoga, having the attitude of, we're just going to open a place up, and if people come enough for us to pay rent, I think not approaching it as a big profitable business is the right way to do something, especially like a yoga studio, where the vibe isn't give me your money when you walk in the door. The vibe is
welcome.
Yeah, welcome. I'm a teacher. Teachers need students, and if I can get the lights kept on, and I think that vibe is definitely apparent in all businesses.
Yeah.
We were talking because of that phone call that I got. That one thing I like about what I'm starting to do now is that you get to actually help people.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain, like my business cards don't say, I don't have a business. It just says James Wodarcyk at your service.
Yeah.
And that's at your service isn't the business name. It's just what I'm saying to people is that I'm there to help.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people want those kind of careers where it's less about producing something and making something and selling something, and about doing something that you love that actually people benefit from, and you can still make an income. And that's like a really great way to make a living, is by providing something that makes people happy.
Yeah, for sure. I think so many people are wanting to do that now, to have a career that they, or rather than having a big serious career, having 5 jobs that they piece together that they really love each and every one, and are really fulfilled by it. Or even if you have a job that you're not super fulfilled by or really passionate about, having something on the side, or spending your time in the evening working towards how are you going to be able to make a living, but also just be really happy still, and develop yourself as a person. We have gotten so busy in that you're supposed to go to school, and then you're supposed to have a job, and you're supposed to have a family, and all of these things that you're supposed to do, but where's developing yourself as a person, as a human being, and trying to further human evolution, or this whole kind of what's the next step in consciousness or awareness. And it's just interesting to it's very cool to see people kind of just looking for something a little bit deeper, even if they're not like taking it to that deep of a level. Just wanting to be happy, and
I think a lot of people do struggle with happiness, and I think oftentimes we think that money is going to be the thing that's going to make us happy, when almost anybody, unless they have a dire financial situation, when they really look at their life, they realize that there's not a lot of other than maybe getting caught up on bills so you're not stressed out. That money doesn't really make you happy, and I come from probably an uncommon way of looking at things for modern society, but I prefer to just not like overly spend money so that I'm not in debt, so that I make a pretty modest income at my hospital job, and but I've learned to live within my means, and it's so nice to not be stressed out about money just because I spent it because I wanted to buy things.
Yes, you don't have anything hanging over your head.
Yeah.
All of that debt is hanging over our heads all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like in the back of your mind, whether you realize it or not, for sure. It's interesting. I just have been listening to some really cool podcasts and reading a bunch of research that actually shows that I can't believe I'm even going to say this, but that money can buy happiness, but it's that we're spending it so wrong.
Right.
So, money can buy happiness or it can buy misery. So,
It can.
And what all of these studies have shown is that the way you're spending your money is what can really make you happy or not. So, if you're donating to charity, you're going to feel really great about that. And that same bit of research or those same podcasts all talked about how it was so interesting and motivating to know that in these studies, people, the less money people had or the less money people made, percentage-wise, the more they gave away.
Yeah.
So the more money we make, the more money we earn, the less we have to go out into the world and interact with other people. We get a bigger house, so we're not as close-knit with our family. Right. We end up kind of dividing ourselves and getting a little bit too much space from the world around us. And so what all that research has shown is that the more money people make, the less of a percentage that they end up donating or helping others. And so, you really can use your money for good and buy, if you have to buy new clothes, to try to invest in something that was eco-conscious,
right.
or about the people that made it, or just something that's a little bit better quality, it's going to last a little while longer, or to buy things all secondhand and you just feel really good about it, and your money works better for you rather than you working for your money.
Absolutely. And I think if you tell people, like, what would it be like to wake up in the morning and not worry about your credit card bill and not worry about, if you're going to be able to make your mortgage and your car payment and all that stuff, you say, well, all you have to really do is not buy such an expensive house and realize that you don't need a brand new car and you don't need the newest iPhone, and pretend like you're poorer than you are, and I don't know how many times people say, I could not get by on so much money, and I tell them there are families with children that they get by on half of what whoever it may be makes, and so that it's a perception that you need more money. And I think one of the reasons why maybe lower income people donate more money is that they know what it's like to be needy, so they're more inclined to help the needy, because either they know that either they were one or that they could be. And I think when you get to a certain income level, you think that you just get so detached from that you think of it as those people, where I think when you're not as when you don't have such a great income, that you think of yourself as kind of one of those people. I'm just happen to be on the good end of things right now, and it makes you a little bit more compassionate towards people. And it is, and that thing where you have a higher income and you what's the kind of the common saying that someone, when they get a raise, it's great for like the first couple months, and then they go out and like increase they go buy a bunch of things or whatever, and so then they're already above that limit, and it's really hard in our society. I try not to judge people for that, because I think we're brought up in a world where they really want people to be like that, or it's very easy to fall into those traps. And I get a hard time from people all the time. Why do you drive those old cars? I said, because they're cheap, and I don't have a car payment. And they go, don't you worry about breaking down? I said, well, new cars break down, newer cars break down, and old cars are actually pretty well built these days.
Yeah.
That you could have, like, I have a 2001 Honda Accord, and so it's 17 years old, and to me it's like a nice car because it is nicer than the last car that I had.
Yeah.
And I have the Galaxy 5, and I don't know what the Galaxy out is now, but the last one was the Galaxy 4, so I still have the nicer, newer one. It's just 3 years behind everybody else's nicer, newer one, and I don't know the difference. To me, it's faster than the old one. And
yeah, it's all about perception.
Yeah, and it's nice because the podcast actually, I don't think I've ever said this on here. People don't know. It actually cost me money to do it because I have a hosting service, and I don't ever make any money, and I don't sell any advertisements or anything. At least not yet. Probably won't, just because I don't have the energy to go and sell advertising.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to afford to do something like this, which to me, I think it's a really cheap habit. What $300-400 a year, I think that it's for everything, and but that's like a great way to spend time, and I get a lot out of it for that money. And it's nice that I'm in a position that I can afford it. And one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you come on the podcast is that I think that there are some people for sure that are thinking about a different lifestyle. So for them to hear about your journey and to hopefully inspire people to maybe at least consider their lives, and maybe they don't have to necessarily go out and start a yoga studio, or even start a business, but just be more thoughtful.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things I think that you get from yoga, is that you are more thoughtful.
Yeah.
And
you realize that you have so many choices. You have all of these choices all day, and we don't have a lot of control, like you mentioned. We barely have any control over ourselves, let alone the world around us. But we do have all of these choices, and that is what affects our lives so much, or the little choices that we make each day. And so it's really nice, and it's interesting. Most of the people that come here, I've only met from the studio, and so they have a perception of me, but for people that have grown up around here, maybe that knew me before, have a very different perception of me. And so I've not always been happy and nice, I guess. I used to be the girl, like, drunk, crying, fighting with her boyfriend in the bar.
That's funny.
And like being super harmful to myself and probably to other people. And I've gotten into fights and I mean, just been completely and utterly reckless, and just wrecked and ravaged my body, and I'm broken and horribly injured permanently on the inside. Was what brought me to yoga, was to deal with kind of chronic pain and stress and all of that stuff. And so I think it's also hopeful to see, like, maybe people that did know me before, like, I've come a long way, and really stuff doesn't get to me as much as it used to. And I think the more time that you really spend looking at yourself and developing yourself as a person, and nurturing and caring, like truly caring for yourself as a person, the more time that you can spend on that, just your life is going to change so much, and the less that the outside world really affects you. It doesn't matter what the guy next to you does in traffic, like, if you are in a good place,
And I think for people just to know that if they maybe aren't happy with their life or the way that they are, that there is the ability to change and morph. And I had this conversation last night and I always joke around that in my later years, because I'm 50 now, that I'm making up for all my past indiscretions from my youth. Because when I was in my 20s, I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done, and definitely hurt people, and had a different attitude towards life and towards people, and it was definitely more egotistical and self-centered and aggressive. Which people that know me now, like, I'm not. I mean, I do have moments where like it's still there, and, but I don't know that I would have always, people that knew me in my 20s maybe not say that as many people would say that I was a nice person as they do now. At least that's the way I kind of remember it. And I certainly did a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing, but that's youth, and the fact that I've been able to, I feel like I've about 3 times in my life I've become a completely different person. So I'm like on 3.0 that change is possible, and you can live a different life. Then you're not stuck in the cycle that you think that you're in, at least not nearly as much as you think. I weighed 310 pounds at one point.
Wow.
So, and I was that weight for 8-9 years, and it felt like it was going to be forever.
Yeah.
And now I'm down to, I still would like to lose a few more pounds, but I try to focus on the successes. So I'm still like 225, and I'm very thankful to be 225 really at the end of the day. And it is possible to do it, and any kind of self work, whether it's losing weight or just becoming a happier person, it's not easy either. It's requires some effort, but I think you proved that it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, and it's like a never-ending. It's just a never-ending journey. I mean, you never become the perfect person or this best version of yourself. You're just always striving to like seek out this best version of yourself, and that can be really nice. And yoga is just a never-ending practice. Like I said, it's accessible to everyone, so that you can come to chair yoga, and we do the whole class just sitting in a chair. You can practice forms of yoga and meditation, the philosophy, if you're bedridden, or if you're super busy, you can take 5 minutes every day to do a little something. And so it's totally accessible to everybody, whether you're paraplegic or overweight or, super busy or whatever the case is, or hyperactive. It's totally accessible and never ending and always evolving. So when if you figure out all of the postures and poses, then you start to put them together in more challenging and interesting ways, and you take them to the next level of having this awareness of your body to be able to have this control. So it's not just about like being able to stand on your head because it makes you feel good or it looks cool, or it makes for a great picture, but it's also kind of having this ability to like realize, I do have some control over myself. I do have some awareness, and I have this strength that I didn't think that I had, or I am more flexible mentally or physically than I thought I was. And that's pretty cool too. And all the other 7 limbs of yoga besides the postures, just like we talked about, having that compassion for yourself and practicing non-harming and non-judgment and all of the other limbs, and working on meditation and mindfulness and breathing. We could go our whole lives without ever paying attention to the way that we're breathing, and if you're doing that, your body is only barely breathing enough to keep you alive. Right. And just imagine it's like if you ate only the bare minimum that you absolutely had to keep yourself alive, versus eating like plentiful, healthful
food,
meals. How much different you would feel if you stretched your body in a way that allowed you to take in more breath and thereby send more oxygen to your brain. So it's not just about like taking a deep breath because it feels good and it sounds nice, but because you're literally sending more oxygen to your brain and body. So that's really what's really cool about like blending the Eastern philosophy and the history of it with this Western knowledge of anatomy and science, and the neurology of it is really cool.
It is. I know sometimes when I'm stressed out or upset or whatever, it's just taking a nice deep proper breath that I learned in yoga. That it does help me feel better, either relax or calm down, or just feel like everything's going to be okay. And there is something when you don't have enough oxygen in your system where you kind of just don't feel good. And it gets to you and that's one of those things that kind of gets to you in a way that you don't realize what's getting to you. And One of the things I was going to ask you, I had heard that the physical act of yoga, because you mentioned the different parts, was actually one of the last things that came up, and it was really one of the yogis had kind of came up with it, or they came up with it as a way to relax before meditation,
right? And
so that it's what people commonly think of as yoga is the poses, but it was actually the precursor for the meditation session.
Yep, absolutely. The postures are designed to prepare your body to be able to sit in meditation.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you need to stretch and move and open yourself up, and to open up the energy channels to kind of allow things to kind of flow through you, but also just physically, your bones or your muscles. Sometimes from muscle memory, we just get really stuck and you can't sit comfortably, or you can't sit cross-legged, and it's totally fine to sit in a chair for meditation, or to sit in the bed for meditation or anything. But originally the postures were designed to be able to prepare your body to be able to sit in meditation. And so it's really interesting that that now we in the West especially tend to just do that, but totally forget about the meditation.
Sometimes we do that with goats, actual goats, right?
Sometimes we do yoga with goats. We're doing all of these crazy things, and I think it's great. People sometimes need a gimmick or just something that really excites
whatever gets them in the door, right?
Whatever gets them in the door, for sure. And then to realize that still, even in a yoga asana class, or that seems to be mostly physical
power yoga,
power yoga, hot yoga, that we're still practicing pranayama and different breathing techniques, and incorporating meditation into the beginning or the end, or all throughout the practice, and having a theme or an intention for the practice, and just kind of taking it to another level. And there's a ton of criticism about yoga in America or yoga in the West being having been so commercialized, and like all of the products for it, and just a lot of places it being just, or seeming to be, or literally being just really physical, about the physical practice. But also, we're doing so much sitting. Everybody's sitting at their office job, or sitting in the car commuting forever. And so we need that physical aspect to open us up first, before we could start to figure out what is going on in our heads.
I think a lot of times people have that pent-up energy that they don't really realize it, and so much of your life spent sitting, then you develop a body that's really best suited for sitting, but your brain is still wanting to move, and we're hunters and gatherers at heart still, and so we're on the move, and we sprint after danger when danger comes, and I imagine that we're really only designed to probably sit a little bit when we eat, maybe, and otherwise that's not unnatural for us, and also just the physical, just the physicality of life that we're supposed to have, that when we don't have that, it does get to you in ways that you don't realize. I know my job, I had a computer at the desk that I could sit at all day, but when we moved to our new department, we have a little counter space with a computer that you can stand at. And it's really for the doctors that come in and really quickly do a note. But I took that over because I like to stand. And I know several people all the time make comments like, you don't sit down, or why don't you use the one where you... And I don't want to sit down. Then occasionally I have periods in the day where I do, but I prefer to stand. And now I have a body that's more... okay with standing. It doesn't bother me to stand all day like that. In fact, once you're standing, then moving around is a lot easier. Once you sit down, I'll get up and get that later. Now that I'm already sitting, and so I like the idea of being able to be mobile, and sitting is one of those things that I don't think we realize that how much we do it, and the toll that it takes on our health. And the interesting study I just heard about, that people with really strong legs live longer, and it's because when you get to a certain age, you have a hard time getting out of the chair, so you just sit there.
Falls
Yeah.
are so detrimental. Yeah, when you're older, if you have an injury, then it limits your social interaction, and that can be so detrimental to your mental health, and maintaining balance and joint health as you age, for sure. I've heard a lot of that as well, about lower body strength being so important.
Yeah, because you just can't, for a variety of reasons, move around the way someone that does, and people that move around live longer. And anybody that's, when you retire, if anybody's listening about retiring, plant a garden. Take classes. Do not do the traditional, I'm going to sit on the porch and watch the world go by, because it'll be a short retirement. Unfortunately, my grandfather did that. He worked in the coal mines, and his body was pretty destroyed. I don't think he even retired at 65. I think it was even earlier. But he just didn't live long, and that was his thing. Go out on the porch and relax every day. And he really didn't have the body by the time he retired to be able to do too much. And he just didn't live long. My dad is, I think he's going to be 87 in May. I should know that for sure, but he still gardens and cuts his own grass. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day about how much care they have to do for their father. And I said, I stopped by, and he goes, all right, you got to go now. I got to go dig out some potatoes. I'm like, all right, Dad, see you later.
That's awesome.
And that's,
I mean, not that he's kicking you out, but that he's so active.
and I think it's great that he's kicking me out, because he's not sitting around waiting for his sons to stop by, and he's bored. He's got stuff that he wants to do still.
That's
at
awesome.
86, and me and my brother are like that, so I think it runs in the family. So I totally understand when he's like, he gets up in the morning and he wants to dig those potatoes. Someone stops by. He's like, well, that's nice, but I got stuff I want to do. And I think that is one of the secrets to longevity.
That's really something to ponder and to look up to, someone like that.
But for those of us that work in offices, because he didn't work in an office, to have yoga and things to come to
balance, to counterbalance. It's all about balance. I still eat junk food and soda once in a while, but I'll make a deal with myself, and if we go out to dinner and I want to have a soda, like, I'll make myself drink 1 or 2 glasses of water first, and so it probably would be better, and I would feel a lot better, and my arthritis would be better if I could forego the soda altogether. But still, you can find balance, and luckily, thank goodness, you don't have to spend nearly as much time countering those effects. So if you're sitting in an office for 8 hours, like, thank the good Lord, you don't have to be stretching or coming to yoga for 8 hours a day. It takes very little time to counter those effects, mentally and physically. So it takes very little effort if you can just, find something that works really well for you to combat stress mentally, or that muscle memory and fatigue, and the sitting. Even those of us that, I say it all the time, those of us that are really active we're sitting right now. You guys, we're sitting right now while we're talking in this podcast, but we're sitting to drive, and a lot of us to work, and to eat, and to socialize, and to Netflix, and all of that stuff sitting.
Maybe they need a new version of the Fitbit, and they call it the Sitbit.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it just records how much time of the day that you're sitting, and you just know that you're either sleeping or moving around. Because I often think the Fitbit, if people wave their arms around, it kind of counts things. But something where it just records when you're not moving. And then you just know by subtraction that the rest of the time you're moving. You go, wow, there was a lot of time during the day when I was inactive. Don't care how many steps you got. You still had 20 hours of not moving. But I think it's great that you're accepting of all forms of yoga, and that you understand the science behind it. But you also understand kind of the spirituality, and you really know what you're talking about when it comes to yoga. But that, I know the classes that I took, I never felt like that it was, it was just a nice balance of someone who knows the different ins and outs of it, but knows how much to meter it out, and is not judgy about the different ways. And I think that's makes for a good studio, makes for good classes, and for you probably makes for like a good sense of satisfaction and just being at peace.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to get feedback from people, whether it's, positive, neutral, or negative, and it's just helpful for me to develop as a teacher and a
Sure.
studio owner and as a person, and yeah, it's really been amazing, all the people that have shown up and that have continued to show up, and I just love that the yoga is so deep. It can be super simple, and you can just come to a class once a week, and it's really nice, and or you can start incorporating it a bit more into your lifestyle, and doing a little bit each day, or being more mindful, or developing a true meditation practice. It's just up to you how far you want to take it. I just started doing yoga at West Lib. Now I teach yoga at West Lib, but I took my first ever yoga class when I was a student at West Liberty. I took every PE class they had to offer because I do not like to work out, so I needed that motivation.
Sure.
So having to be there for the attendance credit was really helpful. So I took yoga, and that was my first exposure to it. And then now I teach. Now I'm the yoga teacher at West Liberty, and I have this studio, and many of my students at West Liberty are here have since gone on to become yoga teachers.
That's
and
awesome.
so you might get bit by the bug and really take it in a direction that you never thought, or just might help you really manage your own life and stress, and to help you really realize what's important in your life and what's not, and where you want to spend your time and energy and money, and where you want to put your focus, and developing yourself, and so that can be really nice.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the benefits of trying new things in general, is just that you find that things that you never even thought about before, that you find out that it's something that you love, that whether it turns into a career or a hobby, or just something that you have an appreciation for, that makes you feel good. And I think that what you do here is just a great asset to Wheeling.
Thanks.
And to the Ohio Valley, and it's such a nice to see, like, a successful business that's also kind of developed organically, and it's very ethical and kind, and that you don't have to have the ledger book out and pinching every little penny to be successful. In fact, I would have to say that it makes sense that a lot of your success comes from the fact that you're not.
That our business plan was just to break even, and to offer yoga without having to come out of our own pocket. And luckily, my husband, he's a union pipe fitter and an artist, and so he gets laid off a lot, but is kind of a jack of all trades, or I guess as he would say, he knows how to do everything, but kind of a jack of all trades but master of none. I think is what I'm getting at. Even though he's really, really great at all of the things he does, but luckily, like, he has a pretty solid income, and I was already teaching at West Lib, and so we were fortunate enough to be able to come into it with the mindset of just trying to break even, and offer yoga, and have the Friday night donation class. We've been able to give back thousands of dollars back to local nonprofits, and so that's been super awesome, and kind of that's my balance to feeling really bad for charging people for yoga, but having the donation class people could come to for it's pay what you can, even if that's nothing, or spare change or whatever. And so to be able to have that, and to do some stuff a little bit of stuff online. We're trying to do a bit more so people can practice at home if they aren't able to come, or can't afford to come, or have some social anxiety still, and just to really try to make it accessible to everyone, and inclusive to everyone. Our people that come in and do a bit of marketing for us always want to know what our demographic is, and we just truly don't have one. Tends to be more women than men, but we have more and more been getting more and more guys at every class, and so that's really nice to see, just more of a balance. And everybody, it spans across all ages. We might have a high school kid in the class with their grandma, or someone their grandma's age, and everybody's able to come together and practice together, and and our LBGT friends or people of different races. Just everybody is welcome here. Hopefully everybody always feels welcome here. And even just issues that a lot of people don't think about, like how uncomfortable it might be to work out or to go someplace and be physical. If you're a transgender person who doesn't pass very well, or to wonder, what to wear or what people will think, or those of us that are straight or cisgender or whatever, still worry about all of that stuff. What are people going to think of me? Or are people am I going to look stupid? Everybody worries about that stuff. But even more so potentially if you have, this other element added on. And so, I just, especially in the Ohio Valley, where we do tend to be just really behind the times, to have a place that's just inclusive and welcoming for everyone. I'm just really grateful to have the space.
And I think it is part of building a larger community of like-minded people. And it is, I go to Happy Goat and I eat a Later Gator. And there is a certain, and it's nice that when you have several things like that they all build across each other, that you do build a community of people that have these similar experiences. So whether they meet at a class or sometimes they meet on the street, and you realize that, we all have these same experiences, and it's kind of even an identifier to let you know that, like, we're the same people. You're one of my people because you have that same experience. So, what hours do you offer classes?
So we have classes every day of the week, and there are different times every day. So we try to, since we're the only studio, we try to offer every type of yoga, every style. We have sound bath and meditation classes, or hot power yoga, or gentle yoga, everything in between. But we have at least one class each day, and you can find the schedule on the website, which is wheelingyoga.com. And Happy Goat also has its own Facebook page, and all the classes are listed on that Happy Goat Facebook page under events. And you can always give us a ring here or look us up online to see the full schedule there. And I'd really encourage everybody to come at some point, or to ask someone who's been here, or to reach out, send me an email if you have any questions or concerns before coming. But just come, just show up.
And it's easy to find because I had been here a couple times before. I kind of knew the general area, and it's right on Main Street, heading north, and it's where you turn down there from the weird interchange, because it's the weird one-way streets. You go one block up, and it's right there on the right.
Yep, we're right in between Convenient and the former Uncle Pete's.
Yep.
And 600 Main Street. We're on a corner, so there's a decent amount of street parking. And
you're down the street from one of my favorite barbers, Ray.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, my son gets his haircut there.
He let us use Ray's barbershop for one of our movies once, and
cool.
I love getting my hair cut from him. He's such a fun guy.
That is a really cool place. It's just an old school barbershop.
Old school barbershop, right? It's beautiful.
I love looking
really
around
cool.
in there. Yeah, we love going down there to get his haircut. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful neighborhood. We're the last building in the historic district. So, we've got still the original tin ceiling in the yoga room, and so there's always kind of something interesting to look at.
Absolutely beautiful, relaxing space, and you're such a nice, warm person to be around. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure you probably have a class going on at some point tonight. And but I really appreciate you immediately saying that you would come on. I was really excited that you came on, and this was everything that I thought it would be. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. It is so great to talk to you and to talk to your listeners. And this is, believe it or not, very far outside my comfort zone. I actually hate doing things like this, and I avoid doing things like this like the plague. But not a New Year's resolution per se, but just this a shift I'm trying to make in being a little bit more open to talking about it publicly or marketing myself for the studio. And so I've been trying to say yes to more things. And this was easy because, you seem like a super great guy, and
you just sit here
and I love podcasts.
Yeah. And it's great because if anybody's been in here, we're just sitting at 2 nice chairs right out in the lobby area, and it's really comfortable and relaxing, and just 2 people hanging out talking. There just happens to be a couple microphones sitting on a chair in front of us.
Yeah, it's not been awkward at all.
You were great, and I really enjoyed it, and I think everybody that listening to is going to love it. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for being warm and welcoming as well.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And everybody that continues to listen to the podcast, I appreciate you very much. I too am overwhelmed at how many people have turned out, and when I'm out in public, someone says that they listen to the podcast or something, it really does make my day. And even on New Year's Eve, somebody goes, "That's the podcast guy." And somebody else, I had uploaded because the new podcast was supposed to come out on the 1st. I uploaded it before I left because I didn't want to do it in the morning, and so it kind of came out a little bit early, and some of them came and said, "Hey, that history podcast that just came out is awesome." And I had only put it online 4 hours earlier, so that really made my New Year's Eve and my New Year's to know that somebody listened to it that quick. And so I appreciate all the guests and all the listeners.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out to all you podcast listeners. That's awesome.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Lindsay. I don't speak well for a broadcaster, but come down and take a yoga class and check it out. It'll change your life and you'll love it. Until the next time, see ya.
See ya.
What you want.
Bye.